Community Services Committee meeting to order. And Shelley, would you call the roll, please?
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Chris Soap. Bill England.
Here.
Bill John Baker.
Here.
Jack Baker. Julia Coates. Here. Bradley Cobb. Joe Crittenden. Jody Fishinghawk.
Here.
Meredith Fraley. Janelle Fulbright. Here. Don Garvin. Connie Glory Jordan.
Present.
Curtis Snell. David Thornton.
Here.
Kara Colin Watts.
Jack Baker.
Jack Baker.
We do have a quorum.
Ms. Fulbright, would you say the prayer for us? I'm sorry I didn't give you a heads up on it.
That's okay. I don't need it.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the wonderful blessings you have bestowed upon us. We know we're not always that appreciative, but we do thank you for everything that we have. Just bless those who are down on their luck and having a hard time at Christmas. We ask you to comfort those who are lonely, the elderly. Be with our troops overseas and look down upon us with your blessings. All these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you. I want to welcome everybody out to our Community Services Committee meeting today. I don't see anybody in the audience that has an unfamiliar face, so we'll not go with any introductions. But anyway, I want to go ahead and move on to the agenda. I'd like the approval of the minutes of November 22nd, 2010 regular session meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion's been made and approved. Any questions on the approval of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We'll move right into reports. And Norma, you're first up for the Human Services Department, if you want to come forward.
I would just ask if there's any questions about the report, my monthly report.
Fishing off there.
I got a question. I get lots of calls still for rental assistance and help with a place to stay and live and Section 8 or what have you. What does your department have for people right now?
Well, we have applications. People can apply at any time for rental assistance. We also have a program which is similar to the old voucher, 90-day voucher program that's called TAP, Temporary Assistance Program, which will pay for up to 3 months of rental. It's very much like the old 90-day vouchers, but it's not necessarily for 90 days. Some people just need a month, some people 2, 3, so up to 3, because we don't guarantee that, depending on the situation. Now, I know that one of the issues, and I know you had sent me something earlier, that people have to have a way to pay for at least part of their rent, because if that rent goes away, they have to have a way to continue. So it's very difficult for us to put people in these programs who have zero income because we don't have the money to pay their total rent, okay? So we have to look at other arrangements for them. That may be a shelter for a while until they can get things worked out. There's many different things that we look at. So that is what we have for, temporary rental assistance and ongoing rental assistance.
How many slots do you have for TAP and how many for rental assistance?
We have to, with the money in those programs, serve 1,471 families a year. That is part of our challenge. If you do the math, we have $3.5 million. If you divide that out in an annually, I think it comes to 200 and something per month per family. So we have different programs that we use, TAP, RAP. Then we have our small scholarship program that helps folks who are going to college. And that's $1,000 per semester, per person. So all of that has to be divided into that 3.5 million, and we have to serve that many people with it. So we try to serve as many as we can with that amount of money.
Okay, so tell me once again, how many slots for TAP do you have for the year?
No, for all of the rental assistance, 1,471 people have to be served. 1,471 families have to be served annually with $3.5 million.
How many have we served so far?
I couldn't tell you that right now.
Could you please find out and get back to me on an email how many
Sure.
rental assistance slots for the year we have? And I take it rental assistance is like your old HUD voucher programs, maybe, or not?
Well, I just didn't have those, so. No, TAP.
Okay, tell me what rental assistance is then.
Rental assistance is for people who meet the criteria with preference going to the elderly and disabled. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're set aside for on an annual basis, 12 months. Elderly and disabled can be recertified for other years, okay? So you have to reassess them annually. In the past, they were just automatically on forever. It's not that way now because of the amount of money and the number of people we have to serve, okay? Just doesn't go as far as it did some years ago. Okay, once we've served those, the next priority is people who have children who are in emergent situations, then people with children. Lastly is single people. They're at the bottom of that queue as far as priority. Okay, I don't know if that helps you or not, but
Okay, well, when you're getting the information to me, I'd like to know how many, since it's 12 months of time, how many of the first group, the elderly and disabled,
how many elderly and disabled we have on
yeah,
right now?
followed by the second group, which you said is the ones with children with emergencies. And then the third group is families, I guess? with
Yeah,
children?
families with small children.
Okay. I'd like to know that broke down because I'm getting more and more people saying that we
I'll
can't help
probably
them.
be able to give it to you from, up through October,
Okay.
so you can just get a picture, because it's hard to kind of separate those, from recent.
Yeah, just get it to me because what I'm wanting to look at is our, again, is our, in Harley's group is our IHP, because we're holding a heck of a lot of money sitting there drawing interest in an account for land when I get call after call after call of families needing housing. And I don't think housing is an option. I think it's a necessity, whereas us purchasing land is not. I got one more question. The
Sure.
lady that I talked to you about earlier this spring called me right before now. Had a kid very sickly, was going to undergo a transplant. The mother was giving. The transplant was late. It just now took, they just done it the 1st of August. The kid was in the hospital for 90 days now.
Is that the one in
August,
Kansas,
September,
the one with
October.
the-
No, up in Westville.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, they
together.
had the transplant in Kansas.
Yes.
Yes.
She called me this morning. The baby's finally out of the hospital. Touch and go. They're needing help with housing. Remember the trailer was in.
Okay. Do you remember how complicated that
It's
is?
very complicated.
Right.
We've been working on
And
it for years.
our hands were tied because they want to live on that land, and they don't own the land, and we get into all those issues about putting a house on the land they don't have a deed to.
They're willing to move now.
Okay, if
But
they're
the
willing to
baby is
move,
stable
that's
now
what we
that
were
they're
trying
wanting
to get to in the past, so thank you. I certainly will. I've been checking on that, and we've been waiting. So I
think
know
you and
she
maybe
called the
David's
work.
group, Charlie, a bunch of y'all were working on it together.
Right, Charlie and I
Hill.
did talk about it, we all talked about it, and we were all tied up because of what they didn't want to do.
Yes. But she called, could y'all get a hold of her?
Yes,
Thank you
be
very
happy
much.
to, anxious to.
Norma, would you, when you send that report, I'd like to have a copy of that report to, that you're going to send.
We'll just send it to everybody.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay.
And Councilor Hoskin, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wondered what the status of the no water nutrition side is. What's the latest?
I've been told that we should probably break ground end of January if things, depending on weather and those things, but believe the bids are out for the person to do some of the architectural drawings, those kinds of things. It's in process.
I see.
I just checked on it, I think, a week ago.
Okay, thank you. We had talked about the the Big Cabin senior nutrition site. I communicated by email with you
Yes.
about that. Is it still slated for, this is the end of this month, that's when funding is gone for that site?
I have not heard anything different. The issue there is
Right.
they did not serve many Native people. So unless that's changed, I'm not sure. I haven't checked on it in the last couple of weeks,
And
but I can do that.
I think where we had left it is if they didn't meet the 51% threshold, that is served 51% Native American, then even if we had another tribe, which the Shawnee had indicated an interest in helping, that doesn't change the equation in terms of our ability to spend those dollars. Is that right?
Probably not. And I mean, are you saying they were trying to help with the funding, or they were trying to help bring other Native people in?
The Shawnee tribe, in an unspecified amount, had indicated that they wanted to help try to keep that alive, but they said they couldn't do it alone. But I don't think they had a firm understanding of our procedures.
It is not, without that number, it is not a Native site.
Okay. And that number is a federal policy or is
Yes,
a
I
tribal
believe that's
policy?
correct.
Okay. I mean,
Because it's federal funding.
Yeah, and I can understand that. This is just more broadly speaking, but in my neck of the woods, we've got, Native American elders and poor who, because they happen to not live in a community with a high concentration of Native Americans, they're not getting those opportunities. And certainly when it's a federal policy, our hands are tied, but I kind of hope we move to a point where, as a tribe, we maybe massage these policies a little bit to take into account that there's some people that live in an area of not high concentration of Native Americans, and it's somewhat of an arbitrary line to not serve them. But I know you guys did the best you could and worked with that entity to try to help them along as best you could. I appreciate it.
And our funding's limited, so we certainly want it to be where we serve the most Cherokees first, the most Natives second.
Oh, I understand, and I'm thinking more on a prorated basis, trying to help some of the other folks that, just really by accident of birth, grow up in an area where there's just not a lot of Cherokees, and that seems to be a fairly arbitrary way of drawing lines, but I know we have to draw them somewhere.
Right. Lines are difficult.
Yeah, that's right. Finally, on the driveway program, I can follow by email, but if you are still looking for somebody to help the lady with the driveway, the Native American, the Cherokee organization up there, Native American Fellowship, is a resource. So if I think you guys are going to look at a church and maybe some other places.
We were looking at something I think they had given us.
Oh, have they?
And I actually did send an email this morning to check on that, and Lisa's ill, so I think she will get to my email today, but probably not as quickly as I would have had an answer if she'd been a little healthier today.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Welcome.
Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Jordan, you have a question?
Yes. I've been contacted, Norma, by a constituent that apparently the tribe, through the child support unit, sued him for child support. Then the case was dismissed, and it was apparently dismissed in about May or June of this year. Then he received notice in September that they had took his tax check, and when he, and the letter said, call Cherokee Nation if you dispute this. So he called, and they had already dispersed it to his wife, and there's no active case. And when he asked about, well, how do you get the money back, they said, well, that'd be your problem. Well, I don't really see it as his problem. I see it that we made a mistake, so we need to fix it. Since we put him on tax intercept and the case was closed, we should have got him off of tax intercept before they took his check. And it would have been nice had we checked when the check came to our office and made sure that there was still an open case before we dispersed the check to the wife.
If you can give me a name, I can't answer you without...
What I want to do is make a copy of everything they've sent me, which is the motion to dismiss by our people and the order of dismissal by our court, and the letter that he received where they took his money, and see if you would follow up on it, because I hope we're not telling people that if we've mistakenly sidetracked some of their money and we don't have an active case, that we don't plan on helping them get their money back. Seems like since we were the one put him on tax intercept and we didn't have an active case, that we should do something to help get that, retrieve those funds.
I don't disagree with you. I just need the details so that we can
Okay.
investigate.
And I just got it, and that's why I brought it
Okay.
up today, and I thought I'd bring it with me, and I'll give you a copy. I don't want to talk. But that raises a question, and the reason I brought it up today was that tax intercept. I used to work child support when I was in the DA's office, and if you don't, and that was when we had tax intercept. And we had to be real careful and keep that very current, because cases were being dismissed as that progressed through the system. And I know on the state level, they would never issue a check unless or until they knew that the case was still active and the collection efforts were still being pursued. So I don't know what happened here.
I have no idea.
But you all know as well as I do, once you put it in somebody else's hand
Sure.
outside the system, I'm sure that money went on for something else.
I'm sure it did.
And I doubt that individually a person, well, he wouldn't even know how to retrieve that money because it came through our system. So I feel a duty that we should try to help that person if the facts are as we have been
Right.
given.
And
that's why I did ask for more information in writing, because I wanted to make sure you just can't ever tell. Sometimes the story doesn't quite match the facts, but he's took me to a point where I really am believing now that maybe we've made a little error, and we sure need to see what we need to do to fix it.
Okay. No problem.
And before you leave today, I'll get this copy and get it to you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Fulbright, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Recently, Councilor Thornton and I visited a couple of our nutrition sites, and they both had fundraisers, and they were in dire financial need. And I thought, I could be wrong, that we had voted it in here to give them $2,000 a year, but they said they were getting something like $100 a month stipend from the tribe, up with their utilities and things. Do you have any idea offhand?
I don't off the top of my head because I
Would you
need
check
to-
on that?
Sure.
Because
Would
I
you give
can't
me those?
remember exactly what we did. I just know they both were in dire financial need.
And had they talked to their contact with us?
That I don't know.
Yes.
But I think they
One of them,
had received, like, was it $100 a month they had been getting?
Well, they get, we buy food.
I
we
knew they paid for the cook.
And then we do give some money for utilities and things like that.
But I guess with utilities being so much higher than what they used to be.
Okay.
But would you check on that?
Could you tell me the sites?
Flint Springs and Evening Shade in particular. Because they both had recently had, one was getting ready to have a big fundraiser, one had just had one, and so we both made personal donations to them, but, I just wanted to check on it and see what they
Sure.
were actually getting.
All right, I can do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Fraley, you had a question?
Norma, in furtherance of Mr. Hoskins' argument about the federal regulation and the arbitrary lines and concentration of citizens, how will the 5-district legislation affect that? Because his district now will be larger, there'll be a larger concentration of citizens. How will that affect?
I really don't know that it will, because here's what you need to remember about nutrition sites. The community has to organize and be an organized community organization and then come to us to seek funding. Now, we're funding about all we can right now, but if Big Cabin stops, that will allow us probably to go somewhere else. So there's many communities that aren't organized, and the reason being, for what exactly you've talked about just now, is that there's no way we, with the money we have, or even with a lot more money, can totally run these organizations. We don't run them. You've got to understand, we don't run them, but to help them. Folks have to do part of that themselves, and they have to understand that responsibility, and we really try when folks come to us to make sure that they understand that. So we don't really have them divvied up by district. We have them, they're divvied up by who comes and can meet the criteria and says that they can pick up the slack from what we can give them. So, and they tell us that they know that they'll have over 51% or at least 51% Native participants. And I think some of you know in here that that's, I'm looking at Harley because I know he's gone through that in his area, and there's probably some others, that they just don't have those numbers, just like in Big Cabin. We can do a lot about some things, but we can't do anything about that particular thing. That is each citizen's personal choice as to whether they want to eat there or not. So we can help the community provide that service, but it is a partnership with. So I don't think that this division would make it, because, you know, we wouldn't hold money away for area if you had, if we were giving them up and you didn't have anybody in your area, we wouldn't let that money sit there. If we didn't have, if we had someone, you know, in Buell's area that was sitting, waiting, ready to go, or anybody else's. I don't want to start it.
Yeah, you just did.
Does that make sense?
Sort of, kind of. It just means that all services that if we're trying to be equal, that all services, it appears to me that the 5 district would make a difference because you have a larger concentration of citizens in a district. So
it's possible, but just because there's a lot of people doesn't mean they organize themselves. So that's a part I can't, you know, really speak to, but
we'll get them organized with the hospital.
yeah, and just if they'll get with us, we do this frequently. Folks will come, they've got a great idea, they want to have a nutrition center, but they are clueless that they have to be organized, have a board, operate the facility, because we don't operate the facility. We do have guidance and standards that they have to abide by in terms of the food, but a lot of other things happen at a nutrition site. Socialization, community meetings, and all those things need to be run by that community. We don't want to be in their business that way. We want to make sure they have good nutrition.
Thank you.
Fishing Hawk, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, on your family, on your rental assistance, back here in your notes, I noticed it says 1,200 households have been served this year so far by rental assistance. And you said,
We have to do 1471.
and 1,200's already been served by rental assistance.
I'm not surprised, because a lot of those, you know, these people carry on. If you have a 12-month, if you are okay for 12 months on RAP, there's no telling when that month started. So we're constantly looking at those, trying to balance that number to make sure that we can satisfy Nahasta.
Well, what I'm looking at is from the 1471 you said we have, that means there's 270 slots left, and I'm sure some of them has already been
Okay, you
by
got to understand, those slots aren't just slots out there, because some people's rent is going to be more than others.
Yeah.
So the money we have.
But on the average, what I have.
Yeah. So it's
on the average, it's 270.
and it changes every day. We have people that move in, move out, don't tell
I
us.
understand that, but what I'm getting at, ma'am,
Yes.
is the 271 that is left for the tap.
Yeah.
I know some of them is already gone, so what I'm wanting to see is to keep our people from being told that there's no housing help for them. I want you to come forward with me in the email telling me how many you think is going to be left, the money amount and everything, because I think your budget needs more money, even though you are not allowed to ask for money for it. That's what I'm curious about.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Right, and I'm just trying to let you know it's pretty complex about how we try to balance
I
that.
realize it's complex, but to my people that needs a home,
Right.
right then, because they're homeless and they've got kids, it ain't complex.
Well,
And I know
the other
that's not
part
you,
is-
I know a lot of it comes from policies and procedures, and that's fine, but that's the information I want from you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, got it.
Councilor Hopkins, you had
I withdraw, thank you.
Councilor Jordan, you had a follow-up there?
I had one other question, Norma. I received a telephone call from a constituent that was a little bit concerned. They are receiving donated food assistance, and they have noticed that the last couple times they have went to the donated food site, and I must apologize because, Norma, I'm not sure what site it was.
Okay.
That the dates on the food are just real close to being expiration date. And how do we get is that by contract? Do we bid that out?
A USDA supplies the food, and they make the contracts,
Okay.
and we make the request for what we need, and then we receive it. They send it to us.
Is there any way that we can check with them and try to get a little fresher or a little longer date on our food products and
I can ask.
possibly what we're getting?
I can ask. Did they not think they could use it before it expired? I mean, if it's still within the unexpired date, it's good food. I mean, it's really good after the expiration date. We just don't distribute it after that.
Well, I think they were just a little concerned that if it expired, were they supposed to go ahead and use it or not? And of course, I don't know how everybody else is in here, but when I go to the grocery store, I always check and get the longest date I can on anything that I buy.
Sure.
And I'm assuming that these folks probably were looking to try to do the same thing, and they were just noticing that the dates were like just within weeks of them picking the food up, was getting ready to expire, and that just seemed a little quick. I didn't know how we were getting the food and whether maybe we can make I knew if it was on contract, we could fix it, but now if it's with USDA, I assume we'd have to make
Well,
a
USDA
request.
does the contracts with the big food suppliers.
Well, maybe they just need to be tuned into the fact that the big food suppliers are sending us
Getting-
close
yes.
to expiration date type food.
Well, I'm going to ask, because we have to check those expiration dates all the time, because we do send those back and get a credit for it. The ones that are damaged or expired or those kinds of
I
things.
did do a little bit investigating on my own, and I was told by someone that they were having to send food back because it was coming in too close to expiration date. And on at least one occasion, the food that came in after they put the food out on the shelf was closer to expiring than the food they just put out on the shelf, so they didn't know what was going on.
My guess is, because I will tell you that Bud Squirrel is not a silent man when it comes to these kinds of things. So I would be surprised if he hadn't probably addressed it, but I'll make sure that he has.
Well, I figured y'all probably already knew about it, but I felt like I needed to bring it to your attention
Well, that's-
because we don't want to be giving them something that's not going to have much of a shelf life.
And I'll also ask Bud if there's a way we can take that back and exchange if it's really close from when they have received it.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you, Norma.
Thank you, Norman.
Thank you.
Community Services, Charlie Stowe. Charlie?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. As normal, Charlie, we've got your report, and it's a pretty detailed report, but is there any announcements you want to make before we turn it open for questions?
No, to me, everything's moving along well, and so you've got my report, and if you have any questions,
Councilor Hall.
Thank you, Charlie. I want to ask you about the adults grant. I always forget the name, but it's similar to the community youth grant. I've had some issues about it from some of my constituents. It's my understanding that the adult grant is not tied to any education requirement. Your office does handle that, is that right?
Right.
Okay. So it's not tied to any education program, but number one, the application says it is. And I think we addressed this last month. So I've had some constituents call the program, send in applications, and they've been sent back or told, no, you have to be in some sort of education program. And it's my understanding you do not have to be in there. And I raised a question in an email through Diana Turtle. I haven't got a response yet, but the only reason maybe it's time sensitive is because I know there's just a finite amount of money. It's first come, first serve, and I think my folks may not be the only ones, but some of my folks are trying to get these funds and have been turned away. So I just wonder if there's some miscommunication with maybe some of the staff. But can you speak to that now, or can you get back to me on it?
I can speak to it now. My understanding when this adult fund was, when we were allocated some funds, we were told to operate the same way as the youth fund. So that youth fund was tied to education. So this tied that program to education area. So, and unless there's been some changes or changes to be made, then you can look at it.
Right. I may have to research the source of when I thought that it was clarified to be no education. I think Councilor Fishinghawk at some point had inquired about it and perhaps got an email from someone. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, could I ask Jody if she... And Jody, do you recall when you got some clarification on this program that it was not tied to education and who it came from?
It was in this committee. Matter of fact, I think you even asked about it, Kristen. And that's the day they stated it wasn't tied to education. And I think we talked about it at the legislative conference chat house before meetings one night.
And Mr. Chairman, I think that's right. And in fact, at the last meeting, whoever reported, I was in attendance at that committee meeting, there wasn't much discussion on the education requirement other than it was just sort of assumed by both sides that it wasn't required. It was just a matter of getting the application clarified. In fact, I think whoever was representing your office that day said we'll correct the application. So I don't know. I'm a little...
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we go back from the beginning and look at it, research it, and then find out what's really the council's proposal was on that, and we'll look at it, and then if anything needs to be corrected, we can correct it and put it on the right track.
Paula, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll have to go back and verify myself, but I do believe Secretary of State sent out a new application, corrected application that did remove that requirement, and I think it was in the last fiscal year, but I'll go back and follow up to see. And I believe she sent it to the council members, so maybe it's just one of those instances where an old application was utilized.
And it's not just there was an old application, if I could, Mr. Chairman, it was that the constituent called and made contact with staff and said, look, it's my understanding from our councilman that this is no longer a requirement, and the staff said, no, that's incorrect. It is a requirement. So,
but they were probably utilizing an old application.
But I guess, and I really don't mean to belabor the issue, but it seems to me if it's the policy, then staff should be able to speak to that and not turn these folks away, because those folks leave, somebody else applies and gets the funds, and I just think we need some clarity.
Okay, we can do that.
All right. And then secondly, Mr. Chairman, on the self-help housing packages, you had assisted my constituent kind of understanding the program. So I visited with him after the last meeting that he had. I don't want to use his name, but because this is a more general question. When we're looking at household income, in a situation where there's a dependent child who is actually away at school during the school year, but has a permanent address at the applicant's home. So in other words, mom and dad have a household that includes, in their sense, includes this student who's a dependent. Maybe she's 18 and she's at school. She's away from school, but she calls that her home. Is she included in the household income? And I don't know if you can speak to that now, but that's one thing I was curious about, not just in connection with his application, but just more broadly, how we're figuring up household income, who's in the household, that sort of thing.
Usually if a student is away, like in college, away from the home, they're usually not included in the total family that's going to be occupying the units, because they're living in a dorm or got their own housing, so we usually don't count them.
Is that something that is in policy? Is it a case-by-case deal, or?
Not necessarily.
So I mean,
I know who you're talking about.
Well, I didn't want to use the constituent's name necessarily, but and this could come up again. But I mean, is it the policy that we're not going to count the college student, or is it just a sort of ad hoc? Are we sometimes counting and sometimes not? That's what I'm concerned about. Is if that's the policy, that's fine, and we can tell folks like him, look, that's the rule.
It's a policy that we've used. I think even in housing authority, I think they probably use that policy. So.
And I mean, I can see some wisdom in it. On the other hand, a lot of college students are really, their home is still their home, and they're still going to get some beneficial use from that home. And when you talk about an area like my area where there are not a lot of these applicants in the first place, and I think our packet reflects there's maybe one or none ongoing, then I think my constituents start to say, boy, when are we going to get a chance at this? And what I tell them is they need to get more applications in. because I think that's part of the problem is the demand up in my neck of the woods. But for this particular constituent and maybe others, it's a question of what is the household, and that constituent considered his daughter to be part of his household, and I just wonder if that's we want to take another look at that policy, because there are circumstances where a college student really does call their permanent address their home and would benefit from our system.
Okay.
So,
Look at it.
all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thornton, questions?
Yeah, the question, Redbird, housing district, that's a building down there.
Where?
Is that area, Redbird,
Yeah.
is that area going to have any kind of curbing?
Michael, I think we're just doing the.
No curbing?
We're not doing curbing at all.
Okay. What about their entrance to their houses? Is that going to be blacktop, or is that going to be
The road, the
into
entrance.
the house?
Into the
Of
house?
road?
Into the house?
Yeah.
You mean the driveway?
Driveway.
I don't think so. If we have money, we will. I'm not sure that would be included in that, but we can, if we have money, we'll do it.
I've already got one question about that down there. What about the electric? Why wasn't that put underground?
I don't know.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
That's the electric company.
Thank you.
Charlie, I have a concern. I'd like to get a report from the Water and Sanitation Department, and it has to do with the Ross Acres water line there in Delaware County. In the report, I would like to have the total amount of the project, what's being spent so far, and what are we going to do. I've gotten reports from the participants up there that we're only serving 4 Cherokees. And I have a feeling the money is running short on the thing, and if it is, then I'd like to know if it's going to be on the SDS schedule for next year, or how we're going to complete the project.
Okay.
The reason I'm saying this is there's a constituent up there that has no water, and he's been actually waiting on the water line. And now if he got to wait another year or 2 years, he's going to be in a predicament up there. So if we could get Billy to give me a report on the thing, I can let the people know what's going on up there.
Then I'll be with you after, and I'll find
Okay.
the name and see where we at.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Any more questions for Charlie? Jody?
Yeah, Charlie, can you talk about Fairfield?
Fairfield,
How's it going now?
it was out there about a week ago, and it's looking great. The road is in, and water line is getting ready to start back up. And one of the reasons we couldn't get the water line in was because there was so much road construction going on. We didn't want to get in their way. So, but that road looked great. Looked like you're on a super highway when you go out there.
I moved the cones and drove through it finally. You told me to.
Yeah.
I said, Charlie told me I could. Okay. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, Charlie. Next up is Road and Transportation, Michael Lynn. Michael?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe you have our report included with Community Services report. I do have something I would like to pass out, if I may, regarding our transit. I've mentioned in the past that we had ordered new transit buses. We did receive those 3 buses and just had them wrapped last week. And on the front of this report is some photographs of the new buses. I've passed a report out similar to this in the past. It's just a ridership report that I've reported on in the past. One of our most, and it continues to be the most impressive route that we operate is the Salina to Tahlequah route. During the October month, they had 300 rides. Next was the Stillwell to Tahlequah, and then followed by Pryor Creek and on down. Now the Muskogee to Tahlequah route, I must mention, October was the first month for that, and I believe it was also a partial month, so it's not a complete full 30 days. but it is reported there on the back. But even in the first month, it had 62 rides. That's not terribly bad. So, with gas prices on the way back up, I'm sure we'll see some ridership increase. But my main point of passing this out is I did want to show you the new buses. We do have them on the ground. They're over at our buildings now. We are working on the details of the contract to get these buses out and on the roads with the operators, who will be CATS and Pelivan. And as soon as we get those agreements worked out and get it signed by all the parties, I anticipate having them probably on the road, I'm thinking by the end of the month, first of the year, if not sooner. I know we're working diligently on trying to get all the details worked out on the contract language. But again, you have my report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Michael, I've been noticing some activity in our areas on the roads and things like that where they're grinding out the shoulders. Is that some type of federal spec, or people are just doing that to improve safety, or what?
This on the state highways?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it a couple of years ago on the outside lane where they would take a machine down through there and grind out the cross the road, so I guess it kind of makes you aware that you're running off the road.
Oh, okay,
But
yes.
there's just been a lot of activity around different areas, and now they're doing it on the inside of the road. And some of the, to me, some of the pavement looks like it's getting ready to need to be replaced, but they're going ahead and putting this additional treatment to the roads. And I was just curious if it was a new federal standard or something that they're trying to meet, or if it's just they're trying to spend stimulus dollars or something. I'm just kind of curious.
I really can't answer it. I don't know that. I don't believe it's a federal mandate at all, and I'm not sure if it's stimulus fund. I can't tell you Cherokee Nation is not part of it.
Right.
It's probably something the county or the state's doing. If it's on a state highway, it's going to be the state. I know that we call those rumble strips or rumble stripes even sometimes.
Right.
It's just probably just to improve the safety factor. I know it creates an audible noise when the car tires run off of it and hit it, and it can really wake a driver up, definitely. So, but I don't know. I'll look into it and see. You got me curious now.
I'm just curious on what it looks like. It would be detrimental to the
pavement.
But at the same time, I'm just curious if it was a federal statement or mandate there that's required. Thank you, sir.
Michael, I just have a comment, and it's a request again. I noticed all your routes, and you probably know what I'm going to ask you, but I want you to take a look at a northern route. Now, we have east, west, and southern routes on these vans, but I've had several requests from citizens around Jay and Grove about a route up there, so I'd like you to take a look at that and see if we couldn't get one coming from the north. Even the Tahlequah, or even serving the casino work West Solomon Springs. There's quite a few workers I know from Jay or in Delaware County that go there to work. And I don't know how many we have driving to Tahlequah, but that may also be taken a look at too also. So I would request that you do that for us.
Sure, I'll take a look at it.
Any more questions for Michael? And Michael, we have your standing report on public comments, and I guess right now we'll be open for it if there's any public comments on roads. Seeing none, thank you for your report. Housing services with Mr. Sullivan. David?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Got a couple of disclosures to make. A young lady named Summer Vaughn, she's a niece to one of my employees, Sandra Bendabat. They're going to get a low-rent apartment. Kobe Patton, who's the son of one of my employees, Carol Patton, is participating in the home ownership program, so that'd be a mutual help type thing. Just wanted to clarify one thing. The board meeting on the 21st, which is a week from tomorrow, is at 11. We had to move it to 11 instead of noon. Following up on a couple of things, I'm a little behind. I was out of office most of last week, and the dreaded cell phone quit Thursday, so I'm a little behind. I think I got a report for you all that we're just almost 95% done with it. Can't remember exactly what else, but I got a whole ton of emails that I haven't responded to. So if you've sent me one since about 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, I probably hadn't responded to it.
Okay, any questions? No. Thank you, David. Commerce, Housing with Anna. Okay, you're going to do the report.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Anna's out of the office this afternoon, but if you guys have any questions about our report, I'd be happy to answer them.
Seeing no questions, thanks for coming. Old business, I see none pending, and moving on to new business. There is a resolution on the new business, and it's a resolution authorizing the Cherokee Nation Child Care Program to donate surplus equipment to Cherokee Nation contracted child care providers. And what I understand, these are some toys and some desks and chairs that's excess into our child care program facility. They want to donate them to some people that take care of children. So, do I hear a motion to
I make a motion to be approved.
Second.
The motion's made and second. Any questions on the resolution? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. I do want to make an announcement. We're in the announcements page right now, but I understand that we have the FY10, the Hawes performance plan here in the council house. Shelley, you aware of that? Okay, well, I thought it was over here. So if you want to take a look at it and get a copy of it, make sure you take a look at that, the FY10, the Hawes performance report. I'll have to check and see where it is, because I thought it was over here today. I understand that we need to go in and start looking at the FY11, the Hawes and stuff, so I may be emailing the people on the subcommittee an email here in the next week or 10 days to see if we want to meet to discuss that new plans coming up. So got to keep that on your mind. We may want to do that. We may want to meet and talk about it. Are there any more announcements? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.